welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing my May reading wrap up. I read so many books this month. A lot of them were thrillers. I don't know why, but every time summer comes around, I'm really in the mood to read thrillers. I don't know what it is. It's just something in the air. And I also did not read a lot of physical books this month. Since I started in-person work at my internship, I've been listening to audiobooks during the day while I do my work. So that has been crazy. I've gotten through so many books that way. And then I also just read a lot like digitally and stuff like that. So I did not read a lot of physical books, which is kind of surprising. But I'm really excited to talk about all of the books that I read today. Okay, I started with Maybe You Should Talk to Someone by Lori Gottlieb. This I had very mixed feelings on. I landed on a 3.5 for this. I was not expecting a memoir going in. I was definitely expecting more of like a nonfiction self-help book kind of vibe. So I was a little thrown off by the memoir thing. I will say Lori has excellent writing. The way she tells stories is so just like seamless, and it's really funny and relatable, which I really like. The big thing for me was because this was a memoir, I felt like there were moments where we were learning a lot about her career path to becoming a therapist, and I kind of was like, I don't really care. Like, she talked a lot about like how she started out in the film industry, and then she went to like med school, and then she decided she wanted to be a therapist. But I was like, I'm not super interested in that. I was more interested in like her journey with therapy and learning about like why she needed therapy, how therapy was able to help her, how she was able to help others as a therapist. So I personally just was like not super invested in that part of the book, which is kind of why I landed on a 3.5. But yeah, I landed on a 3.5 for that one. Okay, then I listened to the audiobook of The Hitchcock Hotel by Stephanie Roble. I gave this a 3. I think it was okay. It reminded me a lot of In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, which I think I gave a 2.5 stars. Like, the plots were just very similar to me. So I did like the concept of like it being a creepy hotel and like it having all of this Hitchcock memorabilia. And I liked that the overarching plot was kind of like a revenge story. I thought that that was really interesting. But I fear the murderer was extremely obvious from the get-go to me. And I don't know if everyone had that experience, but like to me, when I read mystery books, I'm very much like, okay, there's clearly a red herring character where like it's obviously this person, but you know it's not, because it's so obvious. And so at first I thought that this character was the red herring character, but then we got about 60% of the way through the book and I was like, okay, so it can't be anyone except this person. So it was just kind of obvious to me, and overall the story was just very mid. I wasn't super invested. I didn't love the characters. So I landed on a 3 for this. Like, I would still recommend it to people that are like getting into mysteries or wanting a good mystery to pick up, but it just wasn't my personal favorite. I feel like I'm gonna get slaughtered for this next opinion, but as you all know, I'm trying to read a classic a month. So the classic I read this month was Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I didn't like this as much as I thought I was going to. I loved Wuthering Heights. I gave Wuthering Heights a 4.25. But this one, I don't know. The first half was so good. Like, I was very invested in Jane's story. I loved Jane as a character and as a narrator. And then after she started to fall in love with Mr. Worcester and the conflict kind of started, I felt like it happened too late in the book, to the point where I thought that the book had already like wrapped up itself, where it didn't almost need a conflict. I don't know, like it felt like it came out of nowhere, and I just wasn't super into it at that point. I was very much like, I was satisfied with what I read prior to this and I'm ready for the book to end. And then this conflict came in out of the blue. So I didn't love that. So I think I'm gonna give this a 3.75 stars because like the writing is amazing and I loved the first half and I loved Jane. I don't know, the second half didn't do it for me. And that makes me really sad because I know that this book is very beloved, and obviously like I will still recommend it to people and still sing its praises, but it didn't hit how I wanted it to hit. Then I listened to the audiobook of 20 Years Later by Charlie Donnelly. I gave this a 4.5 stars. It was very thrilling. I loved how all of the multiple storylines wrapped up really nicely. I will say the first like 20% I wasn't super intrigued. I felt like things were moving a little bit slower, but the twists in this book are crazy. Really, really cool mystery. I was very invested from, you know, the 30% mark onward. And it gets very fast paced. It starts out slow, but then it gets faster and faster, which I love. Really cool. If you're someone who loves like an amateur sleuth kind of solving, I feel like you'll really like this. I just was getting similar vibes, but this was really good. Okay, then on my Kobo, I picked up Curse Keeper by Alexandra Christo. I also gave this a 4.5 stars. I loved the concept. Like, the world building was really cool. I loved like the library guards kind of thing. The characters were pretty fun. It had some nice twists that I definitely didn't see coming. It was pretty spicy, which I don't love. You guys know me. I typically skip through spice, or I have a couple books with spice that I do like, but for the most part, spice is not my favorite. And one thing that I will nitpick, because I did give this 4.5 stars, like it was good. A little nitpick thing that I didn't love was the dialogue felt very modern. And I do know that like with fantasy, it's not really a requirement that it has to be like older or like medieval kind of style. But I don't know, like when I was reading the dialogue, I felt like I was reading like a modern day romance, like a Lynn Painter or an Emily Henry or a Catherine Center kind of, like it just had very modern banter, which just felt out of place in a fantasy book to me. And I know that there's technically not rules or like specific timelines, but it was a little bit off. I did eventually like get used to it. I just think at first it was a little bit off-putting, but this was a 4.5 stars. I loved it. The plot was super interesting. Yeah, I really liked this a lot. Then I picked up, where is it? Here it is. Appointment with Death by Agatha Christie. I also gave this a 3. I was disappointed with Poirot in this one. I feel like he is normally like a very funny character, and I just was not loving his vibes. Like, it wasn't that he was doing anything wrong, it just he felt very serious, which is not like him. And the story itself was just kind of mid. So this wasn't my favorite by Agatha Christie, but there were still kind of moments that I did like. I love that it kind of had an exotic destination, and I love who it ended up being, because it was like the craziest twist who it ended up being, but it was really cool. Just not my favorite. I'm so sad about this one. The next book I read was also on my Kobo, and it was When the Meekin Road Was Ours. I got this off of NetGalley. This was a 2.5 stars, and all I'm gonna say is this story is just not the kind of story that I was interested in. There wasn't anything inherently wrong with it. In fact, I think the writing was beautiful. I just wasn't invested, and I think that that's fine. I would love to recommend this to people, and I will hype it up to anyone that I think would like it. I just personally was not super connected to the story. Then I listened to the audiobook Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. This was one that I was so sure I wasn't going to like, but I ended up giving it 4 stars. What I love about Cara's books is her characters are always so good at communicating that the relationships become really healthy and real, and I love that. So like even when there is drama, they're able to resolve it through healthy communication, and there's never a miscommunication trope, which I love. I love to see it in romance. And so that was something that stood out to me about this one. Yeah, so this was a 4 stars. It was really cute. Loved the kind of just New York vibes. And I love the ending and how everyone kind of got their own happy ending. It was really cool and really satisfying. So love to see it. Okay, next audiobook was The Berry Pickers. I also was surprised by this. I definitely was more interested in Norma's storyline than I was Joe's. I feel like for Joe's, there were moments where I was a little bit like, I could zone out right now. Whereas Norma, I was much more locked in, and I think it was just because I knew Nora's story. So like her figuring things out gradually was stuff I already knew, so I was like so much like, oh my gosh, please figure it out. But yeah, I gave this a 4 stars. I thought it was solid. I was pretty invested throughout, which I thought I wouldn't be. But I liked it. And then I picked up another Agatha Christie. I read Cards on the Table. I borrowed this from my sister, so the copy is in her room. I gave this a 3.5. I think it was definitely better than Appointment with Death. I think the way that the murder happened was super interesting, and just kind of like the setting of it all. And I love how it also was kind of like a revenge blackmail type situation. I don't know. It was like really action packed at the beginning, and then it kind of like fizzled out. I also was frustrated with who it ended up being. I don't know why, but like they originally had another suspect and they were like, it's definitely this person. And I was like, oh, I'm so locked. Like, I love that it's this person. But then in the end, it ended up being someone different. And so I was kind of frustrated by that. Like, I wanted it to be the other person. I thought that made a cooler story. But yeah, overall 3.5, maybe even like a 3.75. Like, I was pretty invested. It's just classic Agatha Christie, but there was just a couple things that I didn't love about it. The next audiobook was The Last Page by Katie Holtz. Another one that I started out not liking and then it grew on me. So I gave this a 4 stars. I think what I didn't like was originally everyone was so angry with the situation, and I was like, there's nothing they can really do, because at the beginning of the book you basically learn that the male love interest is like taking over the bookshop because his grandpa inherited it to him, and everyone's so angry that he's taking it over. But I'm like, there's not really anything you can do. Like, it's not like he's evil. Like, he comes in and he's very nice and respectful, and so I kind of was just like, he's not doing anything wrong. So I was just kind of frustrated with the other characters, but I do feel like that they do kind of mature out and mellow out a little bit. So it definitely grew on me. Yeah, but I really liked this. 4 stars, super cute, bookish romance. We love bookish romances. This one was no exception. It was super sweet and cute. Then I read The Silent Appeal by Janice Howlett. I love Janice Howlett's books. I've read 2 books by her and they both were 5 stars. This one was a 4.5 just because it took so long for the actual murder to happen. But I will say that Janice has really great ways of like keeping the reader still invested. Like, I was very invested in just like the dynamics between the group and like the different secrets, but I just kept waiting. Like, every every section, I was like, where's the murder? When is it gonna happen? Which is why it's not a perfect 5, but it was very good. I also love how this one centered around a theater troupe because like that's my people. So this one was really fun. I really enjoyed it. 4.5 from me. Okay, next we have our first 5-star of the month and the only 5-star of the month. I am so excited to talk about this book because I sobbed, insert picture here, reading this book. You also probably saw the vlog where I cried. It is beautiful, and this is the second book that I've read by this author, and I'm slowly falling in love with him and just want to read all of his books. And that is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. I have no idea if this is how you pronounce it. I need to look it up. This book is beautiful. Not only is the prose excellent, it's also just such a compelling story and a beautiful story about grief and finding family in those that aren't your family. And I just am obsessed with it. It is so amazing. I know everyone was hyping this up a couple of years ago. It deserves all of the hype. Please go read this. I need to read more Frederick Bachman because I've read Beartown by him, also loved it. So go read this book and any Frederick Bachman book that tickles your fancy because this is amazing. Then I read, actually I'm gonna move this. Then I read Made for Each Other by Lynn Painter. I gave this a 3.75. I don't know. I just wasn't super invested in this one, which is weird because I love fake dating. I also felt like the ending conflict of this one was so unnecessary. Like there was enough conflict anyway, that last little tiny piece with the friend, if you've read it, you know what I mean, was just so not needed. And it kind of threw off the whole ending for me, which is why it's a 3.75, because like it was still good and I still, you know, enjoyed parts of it. It just didn't hit as hard as her other books for some reason. I wasn't as interested. Okay, then I read Woman in Cabin 10. This was one I was certain I wasn't gonna like. I had heard bad things. I was so sure I wasn't gonna like it, but I really did. This was a 4.5 purely because it's a psychological thriller and I feel like it hits that part so well because you as the reader also think you're crazy. You're like, wait, what? You're like, did this happen? Did this really happen? Like, what is going on? The twist was really cool. I really liked that. I did not see it coming the whole entire time. I thought the twist was going to be that she was dead the whole time, but that was not the case. I also love a good like survival story wrapped in a thriller. Like if someone is captured and they're trying to escape, I don't know why I like eat that up. So I really enjoyed this. 4.5, just because it didn't quite get that 5-star feeling from me, but it was very close. I'm eager to watch the movie and see how that holds up compared to everything else. Then I read The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This one was a 3. And it makes me really sad to give this a 3 because the main storyline about the missing camper was really interesting to me. Like I was so locked in on that, but then they kept jumping to these stories from the past, and I do understand that they're connected to the greater story, but like I didn't like that. I just wanted a camp and all the stuff that happened at the camp. Like I didn't want, you know, this backstory about the missing camper's mom and like how she got to that point. Like I didn't want that. Like maybe I'm being too picky, but like I didn't enjoy those parts of the book. So I guess maybe it's more like a 3.5 because like I did enjoy the book objectively. I just was so annoyed about those kind of stories from the past, and also there were some perspectives that I was like, these were not needed. Like the police officer, I kind of was like, I feel like you could cut out her perspective and you would still get the same story. I don't know, it was good. I kind of want to like read it again next year and see how I feel about it then, but for right now, 3.5 for me. Okay, then I listened to the audiobook 12th Night. I love YA romances. As a 22-year-old woman, I really enjoy YA, mainly because there's not spice in them, and we all know I don't like spice. So I was really excited to read this because it was kind of like D&D vibes, which I don't know why, but I just like love, because I love fantasy books. So I love like romance books that center around like fantasy nerds and like things like that. And so this one had like kind of D&D. It's not called D&D in the book, but it's like basically D&D. And so I was excited to check it out. It also was kind of like a rivals to lovers situation, which I always love. I was cringing so bad, which never happens when I read. Well, that's not true. It happens sometimes, but it's usually just like small things that I'm like, they're teenagers. The female main character in this actively made me cringe. Like I just like was so frustrated with her and her actions for the first like 60% of the book. I feel like towards the end she does get a little bit better because like reality kind of hits her, but like I was so like, you cannot be serious. Like she was annoying the crap out of me. The male main character I did like. I thought he was really good. I liked his storyline and kind of how he grew and changed throughout the story, but I had to give this a 3, maybe even a 2.5. Like, again, it wasn't even the writing that was bad. It was literally just I could not stand the female main character for so long, but that last 40%, she grew on me. I also did love her views on feminism. That was something that stayed consistent through the whole book that I liked about her, was she was very much like, well, women are not really treated well within like the gaming industry and like the fantasy industry as a whole. Like, a lot of men like undermine them and their opinions and their feelings. And I was like, that's very true. Like, if you walk into like a convention, for example, as a woman, you're gonna kind of encounter a lot of people that don't think you know what you're talking about. And so I did love her stance on that. So I will say that was not why I hated her. I just think that she very much had a, well, I'm not like the other girls kind of mentality throughout the whole book, and I didn't love that. I just found it to be a little bit cringy, just a little bit. And I'm also trying to do more rereads this year, so I ended off the month with a reread. I reread See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon, who is one of my favorite authors, probably my favorite romance author of all time. It's probably tied with Emily Henry, though. This is a YA that I can get behind. I love this book. It's not a full 5 stars, it's like a 4.5, but it's such a cool concept. It's YA. The banter is amazing. It's a time loop romance, which is such like a niche trope, but I love this trope. It's also academic rivals to lovers, but it's also kind of like strangers to it's like strangers to rivals to lovers, which I love. Really cool. So I had just such a time rereading this. I also annotated it. I try to annotate all of my Rachel Lynn books as I reread them, so I had a really good time annotating this as well. Yeah, so like I said, not a lot of physical books. I only read like 5 or 6 physical books. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Check out my social medias in the description box below, and subscribe for more bookish content from me. Comment down below your favorite book that you read this month. My favorite was easily A Man Called Ove. Again, literally obsessed with it. But yeah, I'd love to hear your bookish takes, what books you loved, what books you hated from this month, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!